How many times have I pondered what could have been had the events of 1968 never occurred? For those of us who witnessed the end of this extraordinary era, the promise held was then bestowed on the unexpected and unforeseen future. Undeserved blessings emanating through our children, loved ones, and the memory of heroes with whom we had been privileged to serve. Today's political climate is nothing more than a spin doctor's diatribe, the negation of ideals that a nation once held sacred and true. But after all, this ain't Harvard, and it's too damn cold in Cambridge anyway. I got a telephone call from the campaign. They said, we're going to be in Indianapolis. We'd like you to join us in a week. There's a big rally in front of the state capitol. They said, you won't have any trouble finding us. It'll be a big mob. Sure enough, big mob in the state capitol. Huge number of people. Went into the hotel bathroom and opened the door. And people were milling all over the place, but nobody was in there except one guy standing at the sink washing his hands. I opened the door, and the guy says, big crowd. And in my usual tactful way, I said, never seen so many damn people. The guy turned around and looked at me like, oh my God, who are you? And the stall door opens, and Robert Kennedy walks out. He goes, he was talking to me. I said, oh my God. So I introduced myself, and he said, you're the guy from Ohio? I said, yeah, you know about me? He said, oh my God, the whole office is talking about you. You got fired because of me. And I said, no, I got fired because of me, not because of you. And he said, we got a lot of work to do. Come on, let's go. And I spent the rest of the day with him. That night, got on the campaign charter, one of 6 people. Rosey Grier, the football player for the New York Giants. Rayford Johnson, the Olympic decathlon champion. Dick Tuck, political prankster, who was very famous. A stringer for the New York Times. Bobby. And me. And I've got a picture with Bobby and me and Rosey Grier hovering over each other on that plane on that night. They wound up putting me kind of semi in charge of Ohio. At least in charge of getting out a big crowd for him to come and visit the Ohio delegates, because Ohio in those days was a caucus state that had no primary. Well, I guess I put together one hell of a rally because he couldn't get from the airport to the hotel. It took him hours to inch his way through. I was getting a reputation for being kind of proactive, I guess, in today's lingo. And as a result of that, I was with him when he gave his speech off of a flatbed truck with the high school band that I brought along. It was playing This Land Is Your Land. Outside the hotel was looking down on all of this pandemonium. And the delegates were thinking, oh my God, this guy can get out the vote like nobody we've ever seen before. That's what they cared about. In fact, I'll tell you a funny thing that happened in the Columbus. Oh my God, how could I forget? I've got so many of these stories about Bobby. When he was leaving Columbus to go to Nebraska, where Ted Sorensen's brother was lieutenant governor, as I recall. Okay, so he was going to Nebraska. Didn't want to be late to get there, so he took a circuitous route back to the airport. And I was in the motorcade 2 or 3 cars back. All of a sudden, it comes to a grinding halt. And what's going on? What's going on? Bobby spotted a group of kids from a junior high school that were waiting in case he came by because they were close to the airport. And they had a sign that I think I later saw in Look magazine that said Sakatoon Bobby. Remember that sign? Well, that's where that sign came from. And so Bobby spotted these kids with the sign. He ordered everybody to come to a stop. He got out of the car, nobody else around, goes over to meet with these kids. They can't vote, okay? Hello. He goes over to meet with the kids. The school that's up the hill descends like an avalanche. All of a sudden, it's a sea of charging, enthusiastic kids. They knock him down. They're jumping all over him. And I never saw him happier than at that moment. He had a smile on his face that could have melted a glacier. And that's who the real Robert Kennedy was. That's the kind of person he was. And so he had this tie clasp made, and he was giving it to the top people of the campaign to wear as being part of that team. Well, the one that Bobby had, I later found out, was given to him by his brother. Walks over, takes it. And Bobby goes, "What are you doing?" He says, "For Ray." He goes, "Okay." And I've got that now in a safe deposit box. I named my son Bobby after Robert Kennedy. And when I'm gone, Bobby's going to have that tie clasp. You know? It would have been such a different country if he had lived. Oh my God. Well, after the assassination, I went back to the funeral in St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York. And horrific experience, given what happened. A number of us talked about what we were going to do going forward.
Even in our sleep, pain which cannot forget falls drop by drop upon the heart, until in our own despair, against our will, comes wisdom through the awful grace of God. What we need in the United States is not division. What we need in the United States is not hatred. What we need in the United States is not violence and lawlessness, but is love and wisdom and compassion toward one another, feeling of justice toward those who still suffer within our country, whether they be white or whether they be black. We can do well in this country. We will have difficult times. We've had difficult times in the past, but we will have difficult times in the future. It is not the end of violence. It is not the end of lawlessness, and it's not the end of disorder. But the vast majority of white people and the vast majority of black people in this country want to live together, want to improve the quality of our life, and want justice for all human beings that abide in our land. Dedicate ourselves to what the Greeks wrote so many years ago, to tame the savageness of man and make gentle the life of this world. Let us dedicate ourselves to that and say a prayer for our country and for our people. Thank you very much.
And I know some people are going to say, wow, this guy is just a product of the 60s, Mr. 60s, you know. I think it's a lot more than that. Yeah, I am. I plead guilty, okay? But it's more than that. It's so much more than that. You know what? It's not the 60s, and I heard the speeches that were given at John McCain's memorial. So it's not just the 60s. It's 2018. And hopefully it's going to be in the 2020s. Because that's our soul that we have to get back. It's still in our hearts. It's still in our souls. It's still in our DNA. We just have to realize it and act on it. Period. And I think we can do that. I know we can do that. Influencing the world we live in doesn't have to take the form of harshness or anger, although it can and often does. It's about one's own belief in themselves and a willingness to act on that belief. One person can produce positive change. One ordinary person. You simply need to dare to dream, dare to soar, dare for a future of your own making.